Hello everyone. Thank you for attending Mental Health Mondays. Today we're talking about anger, the secondary human reaction.
Yeah, I'm Jim Brayshaw
I'm Angela.
and we're going to explore what anger looks like and feels like for us as humans. It's always in front of us. Let's not say always, often in front of us. Sometimes it's exposing us to anger, or we're exposing others to our anger. So what we do know about anger is this.
It's an emotion characterized by antagonism towards someone or something we feel that someone has wronged us. It is a threat response. Absolutely.
Absolutely, but it can be a good thing. We don't want to vilify anger completely. Sometimes anger can give you a way to express the feelings you're having, and it can also motivate you to find a solution to certain situations from time to time.
And motivate us in ways that help us.
True.
So the three types of anger we need to know. There is aggressive, passive, and assertive. And if we're human, we have either done all of these or we have been the recipients of them at some point.
Yeah, hard to be the honest human, Ange, that says, when have I been passive aggressive, and then retool that. But it helps to know what each of those are. So let's look at those three types of anger. The first one we'll look at is aggressive anger.
Yeah, so aggressive is obvious. Directed at the person to hurt them emotionally, physically, or psychologically. Yelling, put downs are hitting examples of aggressive anger. Very obvious.
Very obvious. And the next one is the passive anger. It internalizes the expression of anger when he or she, the person, avoids dealing with the situation that contributed to the feelings of anger. You know, the anger can be expressed by getting even or holding a grudge or being mean at some time in the future, like spreading nasty rumors, or not speaking to the person, like cutting them off.
Yeah, or not speaking to them directly. If there is a problem or a conflict between them, damaging property is a passive anger example.
Sure, those are all legitimate examples. And the third type of anger is
the best way to communicate our feelings, because anger is expressed directly in a non-threatening way to the person involved. And it comes in statements such as, I feel angry when you finish the sentence.
when I feel angry when you finish my sentence.
Exactly.
Yeah,
and that's an example of assertive anger, because
that was a good one, actually, that came out. Although we finish each other's sentences a lot, and that is a good example of assertive anger. And that's the three that we've all seen. And those are secondary human reactions sometimes.
Yeah, it's a secondary human reaction because I felt a threat to say, oh, did you finish my sentence because I said something wrong, or you wanted me to speed up?
I see.
Right?
Good
so
question. Yeah.
When we go to, as soon as someone shouts at us or gives us an angry look, the amygdala sounds this alarm.
So yeah, this is what's going on in our brain and body. There's two key hormones released, adrenaline and testosterone, and they're priming your body for physical aggression, anger, right? And the prefrontal cortex is also activated by our anger trigger. And if in fact we have enough processing time in our prefrontal cortex, that decision maker up there is going to function to make sure that you don't react irrationally to the situation.
Yeah, but what's a trigger? It's seeing or hearing a trigger that or something that sparks anger response from the amygdala, and it happens in just a quarter of a second.
Yeah, so that trigger happens and it fires that info to the amygdala, and the amygdala alerts your body, puts that alarm in action, sends signals telling the next thing your adrenal glands produce adrenaline, and the response of that is what, Ange?
Well, it's flushing red. So we have physical symptoms, and those physical symptoms is actually the rise in adrenaline to cause blood vessels to dilate, improve blood flow for that fight, flight, or freeze syndrome. And it can make our face flush or our neck, or sometimes we get blotchy around the neck if we're angry, but then that person might not notice it. Other people will.
So it's part of preparing you for action.
Exactly.
Right, and I know I grind teeth when I'm angry sometimes, or clench. I actually clench less grinding or clenching. And other people will do what? I think you mentioned clenching fists.
Clenching fists, clenching muscles. We've heard this from our MT sometimes. You carry all your stress in your traps or whatever it is, because we're carrying some stress, which is really maybe the emotion that we
very similar feeling to when we're exposed to anger or have anger. And then the thing that doesn't often happen is our prefrontal cortex, our decision maker, doesn't get enough time to decide what decision to do. So it's working to act to balance out our potentially rash reaction that's coming from the amygdala that says, threat here, you need to respond.
Yeah. So that's what's happening in our brain. So our internal response to external stressors or threats. And those emotional knowns are triggers.
Yeah. Yeah, and they're the primary emotion that leads us to that secondary human reaction of anger. Anxiety, shame, sadness, fear, frustration, guilt, disappointment, worry, embarrassment, jealousy, hurt. And I felt all of those in the last week.
Yeah, I think if I'm honest, I felt all of those at one point, even for a second. Sometimes it's other people's shame I'm feeling, and that's part of the arousal of anger.
Did it lead you to the arousal of anger? Those 5 steps that get us to that anger point. Did it lead to these?
Yeah, because our emotional dialogue will play into it. So if I get triggered because I see injustice as somebody else, it might escalate.
Yeah, and then you rise up, right?
Yeah, and then there's a reaction. There's an escalation or a crisis point, the recovery and depression. Why don't you talk about that part?
Yeah, because the crisis point after escalation is when you're expressing your anger. Okay, almost you could call it an acute phase. And recovery is now I've been angry, expressed it. Now my body's going to dispense those toxic or volatile hormones. The anger is going away. And then depression means I feel often bad about being angry.
Yeah, because anger's not like we hear it in stereotypes a lot of the time. Oh, that anger doesn't look good on certain genders, right? So we feel guilt or remorse, or sometimes we have said something that I wished I wouldn't have said.
Yeah.
If I'm human, I have said something in my lifetime to offend somebody.
Yet it's one of the most primitive survival expressions of emotion that the humans have ever known. So can we not be filled with shame? And when we have this 5th phase of the arousal of anger, hopefully we have a better way to work through that.
Yeah, and if we're human, we'll say, as a human person, I feel anger and sometimes I express it. Can I express it differently?
Well, and that's why we're going to ask simple questions about our anger. We don't want people to listen to this and say, I'm going to stop being angry. We want people to listen and say, I'm going to question my anger, how I feel. And those questions are 3 simple things. Don't even find the answers today. Just question when you have anger. The first one is,
how do I express anger? So naturally, I'm a very physical person, and some of us are fighters, born fighters, and so we tend to be physical in the sense that I might slam a cupboard door, I might do something. I've never done something to a person, but I get kind of slammy.
Yeah, and I have varied responses depending on if I feel safe or not. Sometimes I'll withdraw, sometimes I'll pout, sometimes I will feel like I do need to do something active, but that's how I express anger. And sometimes I'll raise my voice, which is an expression of anger as well.
And yeah, to just further that, a lot of that comes out of our socialization. Can we unlearn some stress responses of anger from our socialization?
And the next question,
how do I feel about anger? So just sitting down and going, okay, I'm angry. I need to find out exactly where this lands.
And even to distill that down a bit more, how do I feel angry? Do I feel pain in my body, or do I feel tension in my body, or vibrating, or do I feel more of those emotions, or do I feel a combination of both? Do I actually feel anything?
Yeah, or am I just trying to stuff it all down and just pretend I'm not angry? Right? We've all done that.
I've done that, yeah.
And how do we receive anger?
That's a big one. When Angela's angry at me or someone's angry at me, I want to fix it. I want to kind of remedy it. I want to prove that I didn't do something wrong, and I don't receive it well, and I feel bad about myself, which isn't always the right move. Feelings aren't wrong, but that isn't the best feeling for that interaction. How do you receive anger if I'm angry with you?
Well, I'm a natural born fighter, but also I hate conflict. So I'll fight for certain things, but at the same time I'll be like, oh, I hate conflict. So I'll back off.
Gotcha.
So often I'll receive anger, and then I try to process it and go, is this my anger? And then I ask the person, is this about me? It's not a narcissistic move to do that.
No.
Is this about me, or is this about something I've done?
Yeah.
And then let's decide what it is.
Because you're giving already some excellent tips for responding to anger in others, asking them and like deciding whether to engage or not. You can do that with your decision maker.
Yeah.
Then can you acknowledge by saying, is this about me? Did I cause you to feel this way?
Yeah.
You're acknowledging the other person's anger, and not reacting isn't easy, but it's a good step. And then asking that question, hey, is there something I've done that's caused you to be angry? And if the anger builds, and should we persist?
No, let's try to use a different method, giving a timeout or something close to that, because that's really important.
Yeah, so we've spent 10 minutes today talking about anger, and we're sure thankful you're here on Mental Health Mondays. Hopefully you find a way to strategize how to work through these versions of anger. I'm Jim Brayshaw.
I'm Angellah, and thank you for having us.